This is Alice in Wonderland for Tori. Chapter 1. Alice was beginning to get very tired of sitting by her sister on the bank and having nothing to do. Once or twice she had peeped into the book her sister was reading, but had no pictures or conversations in it. What's the point of a book, thought Alice, without pictures or conversations? So she was considering in her own mind, as well as she could, for the hot day made her feel very sleepy and stupid, whether the pleasure of making a daisy chain would be worth the trouble of getting up and picking the daisies, when suddenly a white rabbit with pink eyes ran close by her. There was nothing so very remarkable in that, nor did Alice think it so very much out of the way to hear the rabbit say to herself, oh dear, I shall be late." When she thought of it over afterwards, it occurred to her that she ought to have wondered at this, but at the time it seemed quite natural. But when the rabbit actually took a watch out of its waistcoat pocket and looked at it and then hurried on, Alice started to get to her feet, for it flashed across her mind that she'd never before seen a rabbit with either a waistcoat pocket or a watch to take it out of. And burning with curiosity, she ran across the field after it, and fortunately was just in time to see it pop down a large rabbit hole under the hedge. In another moment down went Alice after it, never once considering in the world how she was going to get out again. The rabbit hole went straight on like a tunnel for some way, and then dipped suddenly down, so suddenly that Alice had no moment to think about stopping herself before she found herself falling down a very deep well. Either the well was very deep, or she fell very slowly, for she had plenty of time as she went down to look about her and to wonder what was going to happen next. First she tried to look down and make out what she was coming to, but it was too dark to see anything. Then she looked at the sides of her and, nothing. Noticed they were filled with cupboards and bookshelves. Here and there she saw maps and pictures hung upon pegs. She took down a jar from one of the shelves as she passed it. It was labelled orange marmalade, but to her great disappointment it was empty. She did not like it to drop the jar for fear of killing someone, so managed to put it in one of the cupboards as she fell past it. Well, thought Alice to herself, after such a fall as this, I should never think of tumbling down the stairs. How brave to think of me at home. Why, I wouldn't say anything about it even if I fell off the top of the house, which is very likely true. Down, down, down. How the fall never came to an end. I wonder how many miles I've fallen by this time, she said aloud. I must be getting somewhere near the centre of the earth. Let me see, that would be 4,000 miles down, I think. For you see, Alice had learnt several of things of this sort in her lessons in the schoolroom. And though this was not a very good opportunity for her to show off her knowledge, as there was no one around to listen to her, it was still very good to practice saying it over. Yes, that's about the right distance, but then I wonder what latitude or longitude I've got. Alice had no idea what latitude or longitude was either, but thought they were very grand words to say. Presently she began again. I wonder if I should fall right through the earth. How funny it would seem to come among the people that walk with their heads downward. The antipathies, I think. She was rather glad there was no one listening this time, as it didn't sound like the right word at all. But I shall have to ask them what the name of the country is, you know. Please, ma'am, is this New Zealand or Australia? And she tried to curtsy as she spoke. Fancy curtsying as you're falling through the air. Do you ever think you could manage it? And what an ignorant little girl she'll think me for asking. No, it'll never do to ask. Perhaps I shall see it written somewhere. Down, down, down. There was nothing else to do, so Alice began talking again. Diana miss me very much tonight, I think. Diana was the cat. I hope they'll remember her saucer of milk at tea time. Diana, my dear, I wish you were down here with me. There are no mice in the air, I'm afraid, but you might catch a bat, and that's very like a mouse, you know. But cats do eat bats, do cats eat bats, I wonder? And here Alice began to get rather sleepy, and went on saying to herself in a dreamy sort of way, do cats eat bats? Do cats eat bats? and sometimes do bats eat cats? For you see, as she couldn't answer either question, it didn't matter which way she put it. She felt as if she was dozing off and just begun to dream that she was walking hand in hand with Dinah, and saying to her very earnestly, "Now, Dinah, tell me the truth. Did you ever eat bat?" And suddenly, thump, thump, she came upon a heap of sticks and dry leaves, and the fall was over. Alice was not a bit hurt, and she jumped to her feet in a moment. She looked up, but it was all very dark overhead. Before her was a very long passage, and the White Rabbit was in sight, hurrying down it. There was not a moment to be lost. Away went Alice like the wind, and just in time to hear it say, as it turned a corner, "Oh, my ears and whiskers, how late it's getting!" She closed behind him when she turned the corner, but the rabbit was no longer there to be seen. She found herself in a long, low hall, which was lit by a row of lamps hanging from the roof. There were doors all around the hall, but they were all locked. And Alice had been all the way down one upside and up the other, trying every door. She walked sadly down the middle, wondering how she was ever going to get out again. Suddenly she came upon a three-legged table, all made of solid glass. There was nothing on it except a tiny golden key, and Alice's first thought was that it might belong to one of the doors of the hall, but alas! Either the locks were too large or the key was too small, but at any rate it would not open any of them. However, on the second time round she came upon a low curtain she had not noticed before, and behind it was a little golden door about 15 inches high. She tried the little golden key in the lock, and to her great delight it fitted. Alice opened the door and found that it led into a small passage, not much larger than a rat hole. She knelt down and looked along the passage into the loveliest garden you've ever seen. How she longed to get out of the dark hall and wander among those beds of bright flowers and those cool fountains. But she couldn't even get her head through the doorway. "And if my head would even go through," thought poor Alice, "it would be very little use without my soldiers. Oh, how I wish I could shut up like a telescope. I think I could if I only knew where to begin." For you see, so many out-of-the-way things had happened lately that Alice began to think that very few things indeed were really very possible. There seemed to be no use in waiting by the little door, so she went back to the table, half hoping she might find another key on it, or at any rate a book of rules for shutting up people like telescopes. This time she found a little bottle on it, which was certainly not there before, said Alice, and round the neck of the bottle was a paper label which the words "Drink Me" beautifully printed on it in large letters. It was really well to say "Drink Me," but the wise little Alice was not going to do that in a hurry. "No, I'll look first," she said, "and see whether it's marked poison or not." She had read several nice little histories about children who got burnt and eaten by wild beasts and other unpleasant things, all because they had remembered the simple rules their friends had taught them, such as that a red-hot poker will burn you if you hold it too long, and that if you cut your finger very deep with a knife, it usually bleeds. And she never forgotten that if you drink much from a bottle marked poison, it's almost certain to disagree with you sooner or later. However, this bottle was not marked poison, so Alice ventured to taste it, and finding it very nice, it had, in fact, a very sort of mixed cherry tart, custard, apple, pineapple, roast turkey, toffee, and hot buttered toast flavour. She very soon finished it off. "What a curious feeling," said Alice. "I must be shutting up like a telescope." And so it was indeed that she was now only 10 inches high, and her face brightened up by the thought that she was right sized for going through the little door into that lovely garden. First, however, she waited for a few minutes to see if she was going to shrink any further. She felt a little nervous about this, but it might end, said Alice to herself, in my going out altogether, like a candle. I wonder what I should be like then. And she tried to fancy what the flame of a candle is like after the candle is blown out, for she never remembered seeing one before. After a while, finding that nothing more happened, she decided that on going into the she decided on going into the garden at once. But alas for poor Alice, when she got to the door, she'd forgotten the little golden key. And she went back to the table for it. She found it. She could not possibly reach it. She could see it quite plainly through the glass, and she tried her best to climb up onto the little legs of the table, but it was too slippery. And when she tired herself out with trying, the poor thing sat down and cried. "Come on, there's no use in crying like that," said Alice to herself rather sharply. "I advise you to leave off this minute." She generally gave herself very good advice, though she seldom followed it. And sometimes she scolded herself so severely as to bring tears into her eyes. And once she remembered trying to box her ears for having cheated herself in a game of croquet she was playing against herself. For this curious child was very fond of pretending to be two people. But it's no use now, thought poor Alice, to pretend to be two people. Why, there's hardly enough left in me to make one respectable person. Soon her eye found a little glass box that was lying under the table. She opened it and found in a very small cake which the words "Eat me" were written in beautifully marked in currants. "Well, I'll eat it," said Alice, "and if it makes me grow large again, I can reach the key, and if it makes me grow smaller, I can creep under the door. So either way, I'll get to the garden. I don't care which happens." She ate a little bit and said anxiously to herself, "Which way? Which way?" holding her hand on the top of her head to feel which way it was growing. And was quite surprised to find out that she remained the same size. To be sure, this generally happens when one eats the cake. But Alice had got so much into the way of expecting nothing out of the way things to happen, it seemed quite dull and stupid for life to go in a very common way. So she set to work and very soon finished the cake.